Good day, everybody, and welcome to Amazing Mrs. Max. Today we are going to continue with the lesson that we learned before with our previous video. We learned about indices in our previous video, and now we're going to learn about negative indices. Now, as we all know, there are words that we need to understand when working with indices. We need to understand what the index is. An index means how many times a number is multiplied by itself. And what is a base? A base is the number that is being multiplied. Okay, and now we also have these rules that we need to abide by with math when we're working out with indices. Today we're going to add one more rule to this list so that we can make sure that we understand everything. And with our next video, we will be able to do some calculations together so we can practice, because remember, practice makes perfect. And the more we exercise the more we do math, the more we actually build our brain muscle. Okay, so let's jump into it. Today we're going to learn about negative indices. Now, what are negative indices? If you look at the following number, or the following equation, we have 4 to the power of 0 divided by 4 to the power of 3 equals to. Okay, so if we look at our rule that we have here, we're going to work with this rule here that says a to the power of m divided by a to the power of n equals to a to the power of m and n, where we subtract the index. Remember, our first step that we need to check is that do our bases look the same? Are our bases the same? Yes, it is the same. So we can definitely follow this rule. Okay, so let's do the calculation. So as per usual, we need to write down our equation. Even though it's there, we still need to write down our equation, because then our brain actually gets into math mode. Okay, so divided by 4 to the power of 3 equals 2. And then we write our rule here on the top, so we don't have to go look back in our books to find the rule. We just write a to the power of m divided by a to the power of n equals to a to the power of m minus n. Also, every time that you do the equation and you write your formula down, it allows you to memorize the formula. Just think, if you had to do 10 of these equations, you would write this formula down 10 times, which means you would already have memorized this formula. So do yourself a favor, write down the formula every time you do an equation, and then that will help you to actually memorize the formulas that we need to memorize. Okay, so let's do this equation. We say 4, 0 minus 3 equals to. So what happens when we subtract with 0? It goes into a negative, right? So 4 negative 3. Now here is where we get to our rule. When we have a to the power of negative m, that would be equal to 1 over am. And that allows us to actually solve the equation. We're going to see that now. So the way that we need to write this out is equals to 1 over 4 to the power of 3. Okay, so that is then the correct answer. Okay. So let's look at another example of how we can use this rule to actually solve an equation. Okay, so our first question, our question is, simplify the following. So simplify the following. Okay, And then we have question number 1 that says 7 minus 4 times 7 to the power of 5. 5 times 7 to the power of negative 3. Okay, so first of all, we need to go check, does our rule match? Which rule do we use? We use they are multiplying. So we use this one over here, and we write down the rule. Remember, we write down our rules. A to the power of m times a to the power of n equals to a to the power of m plus n. There we wrote down our rule. And we need to write down the equation. 7 to the power of negative 4 times 7 to the power of 5 times 7 to the power of negative 3 equals to. And now we can implement this rule, which says 7 to the power of negative 4 plus 5 plus negative 3. Okay, why do we put the negatives in a bracket? Is to make sure that we actually do the symbol that we're supposed to, we do the function that we're supposed to, but keep the identity of the number. Okay, so remember the negative in front of that number is the identity of that number. Okay, so which means we need to solve this equation. So what is negative 4 plus 5? Okay, so let's look at it as a number line situation, right? We have a number line. We have negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And it says here plus. From negative 4, we need to start at negative 4, and we need to plus 5, which means we need to move to the right. Okay, 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means this number, let's do the jump again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means this is equal to 1. Okay, and 1 minus 3. Okay, so now we need to go back again, because remember, a positive and negative makes a negative. Okay, then we need to go jump backwards 3 times. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and we land on negative 2. Okay, so we land on negative 2. So our answer here would be 7 to the power of negative 2. Do you guys understand this? I hope you understand this number line that we have here. Remember, if you add something, you need to move to the right. So adding, you move to the right. Subtracting, you need to move to the left on a number line. Doesn't matter from where you start with. If you're adding, you need to move to the right. If you're subtracting, you need to move to the left. Okay. Another way that you can solve this is if you have negative 4 plus 5. You can swap this around. Nee? But okay, so swap this around. What is 5 minus 4? So 5 minus 4 gives you 1. And then you have 1 minus 3. 1 minus 3, you also swap them around, but you keep, because this symbol is negative, you keep the symbol. Same with this one. This one is positive, so you keep the symbol, isn't it? Okay, so you swap them around. 3 minus 1 gives us 2, but we keep the symbol. That is another way that you can solve this equation. Okay, remember there's many ways to skin a cat. We just need to find the method that works for you which you can understand and will understand for quite a long while. So what is the right way to write this? The right way to write this would be 1 over 7 to the power of 2. Okay. And if we simplify this even more, let me just see if I can erase a little bit of the number line. We can even work out what is 7 times 7. 7 times 7 gives us 49, which means this would be a 1 over 49. Okay, and that is our equation. Do you see how neat it is written down? Please make sure that your answers always follow the top question. Remember to write down your formula. And this thing over here, this calculations over here, your teacher is allowed to see that, because then they know exactly how your brain works, how you understand the equation. Okay, so please be reminded to write down your calculations in a neat and orderly way so that your teacher can also see what's happening inside your brain. Okay, and now we have all our rules that we need to follow, okay, to make sure that we know our indices. With our next video, we are actually going to do a few equations to practice our indice knowledge. Because remember, when we are in gym, we need to exercise the same muscle quite a few times before we actually get strong and develop strong muscles. So we're going to practice our rules a little bit in the next video. See you then.